No,
Everybody,
thank you.
come on, give it up. Do that joint welcome. Come on.
Yes, everyone. Yes, we are
That's
so
how we do it
pleased.
in IWOC. Come on. Yeah.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
All right, so this is going to be a quick meeting today. Representative Hollins is very busy, but we just want to show our support. It is so great to have someone in our corner in the State House willing to advance this issue. I just want to point out quickly before I turn it over to Representative Hollins, three things. One, this is a grassroots movement. This group, IWOC and Decarcerate, actually listen to incarcerated people and formerly incarcerated people, and they're the ones that put this at the top of our agenda, this issue of technical violations. And so this is coming from people that need to be a part of the process and need to be listened to. Second thing is that 30 states have pulled this off. 30 different states have pulled off reforms to technical violations. Why can't we? States like Alabama and Mississippi and Utah, these are not places I go to and think about like progressive reforms, and they have done it. We can do this too. And the third thing is we've had a lot of meetings with the DOC, and I think the DOC has made good progress on this. However, when they say, well, just trust us, we'll take care of this. From 2010 to 2017, revocations jumped up 31%. You know, how did this happen on their watch? No one was pressuring them to do this. They went from having about 13 special conditions to 81 special conditions for release. And this was just something, so when they're taking credit for making changes, they're kind of taking credit for problems they created and then are now fixing, right? And so we really kind of feel like the legislature needs to be a part of this because our voices need to be heard. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Representative Athena Hollins.
I just want to say, Representative Hollins, when he say, how could it not happen? We welcome to Jim Crow North, right?
Yes.
Let's not forget that. That's where we are.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm really happy to be here and to meet all of you and to do this work. I'm a pretty new representative and I've never worked in the area. As I told Will previously, I never worked in the area of criminal law. I'm a lawyer, but I did family law and estate planning. So this is kind of new to me, but I do know that it's an issue. And I know that more from personal experience with family members and friends who have had this happen as an issue and have been brought back in on technical violations rather than from the legal perspective. So when this was brought to me as something to work on, I jumped at it and I was like, yeah, I'm here. And you mentioned Alabama. So my cousin's actually a representative in Alabama and helped work on some of the stuff that they were doing down there. So it's, I'm hoping to continue that here. It's very important to me that we look at the criminal justice system as actually serving justice and actually helping to move people's lives forward. Like there needs to be an end to when you've paid your dues and you've done everything you're supposed to do, there needs to be like a finite stopping point to their involvement in your life. And I think this is a great opportunity to kind of make that happen. And to Will's point, I think it's fine to have the commission say they're going to do X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, like, that changes depending on who's at the governor's seat, right? Like, that's not consistent. We need to codify things to make it law so that they can't change it if we end up having a Republican governor or somebody who wants to be tough on crime. And so it's really important to me that we have everybody, all these stakeholders in place, giving feedback and working to make this as equitable as possible. So I'm excited to work with all of you to get something passed. I know that we submitted something to the revisor's office just to get something in time, but now we're trying to work on amendments so that we can make it, because the language that we had was really like not great, right? I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like, oh, for the first time that you have one of these few technical violations, you can't be brought back in. And that's really not what we want it to look like in the end, but we just need to get something in so that we can actually have this heard this session. So that was our goal. And now we're working on trying to figure out how do we want to amend this to make sure that it is bringing equity to our criminal justice system and that we are helping the people who need the most help. So I can't talk for 15 minutes. Like, I'm a new legislator. I can't talk about myself that long. But I want to hear from all of you in how we need to craft this amendment, and what do you think it should look like, and how folks are being affected by it, like in real life.
And I was going to turn it over to Alexis Mann, and she has been really effective. I think she got Commissioner Schnell to change the policy on the way it affects families, because she gave such moving testimony. But unfortunately, she's not here. So Angela or Phil, would you like to pinch hit and talk about it in terms of how it's affected your life? Angela, can you hear me? Do you want to go first, and how technical violations have affected your life?
Sure, I'll go first. Good afternoon, Representative. I'm Angela Hooks, and I am actually one of the few fraction of the conditional medical early releasees. And having experienced the technical violations, most of us are being affected by the discretionary and policy underwriting explanations. We want to look at who has more of the authority to make some of the underwriting changes. And Philip, you can speak more to that.
I'd like to explain, a little bit how, I was personally affected by, being technically violated, the cost that it did to me and my family. Back in 2000, I was living in St. Cloud, and I had a financial fraud case. So it was basically unsupervised. It was a restitution case. I'd gotten a job at a place called St. Mary's of the Lake. It's a treatment center out in Plymouth, Minnesota. So I would be in phone contact with my PO, and she says, "Oh, you got a job?" She said, "Okay, that means you could pay me some money." We kind of chuckled about it a little bit. I went to work the next day, and I saw the sheriffs go by me. So when I got down to the bottom of the hill, Plymouth Police, Sheriff's Department had me all surrounded. She had called the cops on me and had me violated for no reason. Even the judge, I wish I was making this up. Even the judge, when I got to St. Cloud, he said, "Well, what did he do?" He couldn't even figure out what I had did. This woman had a warrant issued for my arrest to do what's called a pre-sentence investigation. It's kind of like an autobiography. They do a background. This gives the judge, some way to determine how he's going to sentence you. It's like a background story. When I went up there, I turned myself in. I'd moved back to Minneapolis. I turned myself in. She was supposed to come in and do the interview. This is in January. She went on vacation and left me locked up for 3 weeks. When she finally came back, I had my life was in a shambles back in those days. I had another court case going on in St. Paul at the same time. That day, it was a Friday. I literally did the pre-sentence investigation interview. My car wouldn't start. It had been sitting there for about close to a month.
Right.
I had a friend that helped me come fix it. I was living in Oakdale at the time. When I get to Oakdale, there's a South St. Paul police sitting there. To this day, I don't know why he stopped me. He pulled me over, and the warrant had issued because I hadn't been released from jail in St. Cloud. I spent another 15 days in jail. Now, during all that time, what happens is that there's no employment. You lose all that. Thank God I was partnered up with somebody at the time, and she was kind of carrying things. But the thing is that is just 1 mile story. I've seen stories that will make your head spin in comparison to that one.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah. And I actually have those papers here. To this day, I don't know what that woman's problem was with me, because I'd only seen her twice.
And I think stories like this keep cropping up, and it's some of the changes that, because we've pressured them, the DOC has already made changes. So for instance, when Phil was talking about having this warrant out for you, the DOC has now changed and says, why do we have a warrant? You can do a summons. It's just as easily. You don't have to go arrest someone, right? you can have them a summons and have them show up for their court date. So pressure that we've placed on the DOC has made these changes. But I think you made a great point, Representative Hollins. There's nothing permanent about them. We could have a new commissioner or we could have a new governor and these things would switch back right away. Brother Wayne, go ahead.
Right. Right.
Thank you, Brother Wayne. Very good. So there's another gentleman that has his hand up as well. It's under the Truth Center. Go ahead.
Hey, how you guys doing today? Thank you for taking the time out to listen to this. So we all know, like the last gentleman just said, that these stories are basically plaguing us as a community and as a whole. one huge thing that I see here at my center, in which what I do is I mentor kids from the ages of 8 to 18. And then we also do trucing, where if you're beefing with somebody or you're being bullied at school or you know somebody, maybe it's even co-parents. And what we do is we reach out to the parties involved and try to get you guys to come and sit down and hash it out before it escalates. That's just some of the things that we do here at my center. One of the problems that I often run into listening to some of the guys, including myself at one point, is I had a criminal record where in 1992, I was caught in possession of a small amount of drugs. Now it is 2022, literally, what is that? I'm not great as a math, but 30 years ago or whatnot. I still cannot go and get a place to stay. If there's issues with housing, there's issues with employment. And my thing is, when are we going to be able to say, if you commit a crime and then you go do your time, once you've done that time, you have paid for what you've done? Here it is 30 years later, and myself and other countless of other people are still paying for a crime that you did years and years and years ago. So it never leaves you. It's always there, right beside you. Although that you've done your time for, you've paid your debt to society for a mistake that you made. And through the system, we need to figure out ways to stop letting that hinder us from being able to have homes, jobs, and countless of other things that we all need to survive out here in our communities. And hopefully, moving forward, we can try to figure out ways to combat that, so that a lot of these kids that come through here, these young adults, that have made mistakes, and now are trying to be productive citizens, can't do it because they're still paying for the mistakes that they've made years prior.
Yeah.
So, I just definitely think that that's something that we need to really take a look at and figure out a way to get that off of our systems and in some cases, people say go get expungements and stuff. Man, a lot of these kids, even adults, don't know the first thing about the expungement process. And then if there is the expungement, it's, we're struggling to put food on the table. I mean, who has the money to pay a lawyer to go do the expungements? And, so there's just different issues that we, definitely need to, as a whole, look at to try to change, that repeat offender or that repeat back through the system doors that continue to happen for us all.
Thanks so much. Much appreciated. Lee, I'm going to go to you, and then Raj, and then Angela. Lee's son has been through this process and seen how it goes up and up and up every time he gets violated. So can you give us the abridged version, Lee?
Yes, absolutely. I have a son who was diagnosed with this first mental illness when he was only 16 months old. By the time he was 7, he was considered disabled by SSI and was getting income, and I was getting help. But anyway, by the time he was 19, he was charged with a low-level sex offense and was sent to jail. And when he got out, he got sent to sex offender treatment and got his first technical violation and got sent to prison. That was at age 19. And now he is 31 years old, and he's been sent back 9 more times on technical violations because the halfway houses are not willing to deal with his disability. They won't give him any kind of accommodations for it. They don't want to wait at all for him to see a psychiatrist, which often will take 8 weeks to get a medication to help him control his impulsive behaviors. And he often will go get a cell phone and get internet on it that he knows he's not supposed to have. and do things like that that just gets him violated every single time. He thinks he's smarter than his PO, and he's going to be able to hide it from the PO. And there's nobody in his corner that is trying to help him. It's like they're all out to get him and lock him up. And every time it's for a year or two. And now this past time, he's on year 3 now on this last technical violation. And of course, now each technical violation has upped him. So he's been a level 3 now for about 4 or 5 years. And if he comes back to my house, my entire neighborhood is going to think that he's a monster for something that really is not scary at all that he did. So it's just a sad situation all around.
Thanks, Lee. I appreciate you sharing. Raj, and then Angela.
I just want to invite the representative to make sure that we are, since we are passing, right, or at least thinking about passing the cannabis law, right, whatever legislation, but can we, input in there, like all drug violations in the past will be thrown out, right? At this point, we are done. We're no longer going to cast the shadow of the criminal system, not criminal justice system, but the criminal system out of people's lives, right? Let's figure out, let's do an automatic statewide expungement of this from whatever time period allocations that you all are putting together. Representative Winkler, I'm hoping it will be mindful about that, right? And then also end any technical violations that is related to, right, traces of drugs found in people's UAs and blunts in their car. All these bullshit needs to go away. Right? So
yeah, thanks, Raj. And I see that Aisha Gomez has put forth a bill that if you're in the medical cannabis system, you cannot be technical violated, which would be a good step forward. Sorry, Representative Hollins, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say that my understanding is that there is automatic expungement for all marijuana violations that happened in the past. That's included as a part of that bill. They've worked with a lot of different stakeholders to try to make sure that we're addressing like every equity issue that we can, because it's really not fair if we make it legal so that, white frat boys can smoke the weed that they've been doing anyhow legally, and the rest of us in Black and brown communities still have to pay the price for the things that, that we've gotten in trouble for. So I know they're working on that, and, whether or not that passes in the Senate is a whole nother issue, because the Senate's the Senate. But I know that at least the bill that they have, it includes automatic expungement.
I hope, Representative Hollins, you're right? I know it's there, but I know when it comes to these conference committees and whatever, where they chop things off,
yeah,
that has happened in way too many states. That Colorado, right, California, Illinois, I just don't, I want us to be observant. That's why this is Jim Crow North, right? Like we do this subtly. So we just need to be mindful. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Angela?
Thank you. I just want to chime in on the brother from the Spruce Truth Center. One way to really reform some of the technical violations and lower recidivism is by supporting community stabilization. We need to look more into piloting pre-release programming, re-entry programming that is community-led, community-based, allocating some partnerships and fundings between the DOC and community-led organizations that are more strategic to where prisoners are being are actually living and engaging in their everyday community commutes. And so that's very important. And the other aspect I wanted to mention was we can't get away from the goal of decreasing the number of negative stories that we're hearing. That goal in itself, if we looked at that, that would involve addressing underwriting maybe the policies and the statutes and that's there's been models like the district attorney in Pennsylvania, Larry Krasner. There's been models where he's taken on the authority to say there will be no technical violations that are not a repeat criminal offense that do more than 6 months. We need to adapt those models so that people aren't being, singled out and harassed and not and uprooted from their lives that they've started on their paroles and probations, and they're right at the door of being, intertwined in their community and living their adjusted life. And like, with the other barriers of being, labeled with these stigmas that are hard to get housing and so forth, like the other gentleman said, and then on top of it, here you have this unknown aspect of when you're going to get snatched out of your life again. If you have that ceiling there, and look, I'm just trying to stay within the compliances of my release, and no one can come and just totally make me have to start all over again. I think that would also help with, the lowering of the recidivism. So that if we could just look at the underwriting of the policies, that might help as well.
Thanks so much, Angela. And your community stabilization point is so important. I had a meeting last week with the Northwest Indian Center in Bemidji, and they are pulling their hair out because nonviolent female offenders are shipped to Shakopee. They're there basically long enough to get an identification number, no treatment or anything. And then they're returned to the reservation and they said, well, you guys handle this now, right? Think of all the resources we waste on transportation costs alone to drive them to Shakopee just long enough to get a number. And so they've got a pilot program there for 20 people. It's already got 60 women enrolled. We could invest in things like that would keep people stabilized in the community, but we don't. Right. So great point, Angela. I see we're running out of time. Brother Wayne, you got one more point before we let Representative Hollins get back to the dirty work of the Capitol? Yeah, and I think that's why we put in that earned incentive element there, Representative Hollins, right? Where people can earn their way off community supervision. Every month they do something right, they get a month taken off. And that's what Brother Wayne's talking about. Let's incentivize positive behavior instead of just simply punishing negative behavior all the time. And I think the DOC has adopted that. I don't think they're going to give us any credit for that being our idea, but they are adopting it. But go ahead,
They definitely are.
Yep.
I was going to say, yeah, they definitely are adopting that and not giving credit where credit's due. And I had a whole conversation with them about the psychology of, that people respond to positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement. You can say you're going to take something away from someone that's like negative, but it doesn't work as well. When you give something to someone, you give them a reason to do the right thing and to keep on going on this path. Like they are more likely to succeed, to feel good about themselves, and to move forward. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from everybody is if you feel like you're stuck in this system, then you just become a part of that system, and it just is bound to keep repeating itself. If you don't get a clean slate and you don't get the opportunity to create a new life and you feel like you're constantly being surveilled and tested and, you know, all of these different things, then, you know, how do you remove yourself from that system if you can't remove yourself from that system? It's just not right.
Couldn't agree more. Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. This was the best call of my entire day. So thank you. I know we still have a lot of work to do on this bill, and I know that we have, you know, that I'm getting pushback from different groups that are, you know, for weird reasons, not even like safety concerns, right? But like, well, these are people's jobs who do this. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, that's not my fault that your job is to get technical violations on people. Like, that's too bad. Like, you're going to have to find a different job. But I think, you know, we're trying to be mindful and reasonable and also try to get something that really can pass through the House and the Senate, even if it's not the broad sweeping changes that we want to make, just because we know that there needs to be changes made.
Raj, and then Ed.
I just, you know, Representative Hollins, I don't know to what extent this is all real. Keep hearing about the Senate Republicans want to limit the amount of money for bail. And I'm understanding that anything beyond $2,000, they should have special clearance and all that. That's another way of entrapping people, right? This is another way of undoing and dismantling people's success in the outside world. And you're out of work for 3 days and you're sitting in the jail. You lost your job, you lost your income, you lose your housing, right? And so on and so forth. And again, this comes back to the family work that you're doing, right? Families have been devastated as a result of the incarceration and carceral policies. So,
Ed.
Hey, Athena, it's great to see you. Yeah, so some next steps that I've been thinking about is, you know, we're still looking for a Senate co-author. So if there's anyone who you could recommend, who you have a good relationship with, who really will support this bill, you know, we'd love to hear it. Maybe get a meeting with them if you could help us set one up.
Yeah.
That's kind of the next steps.
You know, I think the struggle with finding the Senate co-authors, as I understand, like I said, I'm new, but the struggle that we've seen is that the GOP chairs of committees aren't even giving hearings to people unless it's a GOP senator that's carrying the bill, which has been a fun experiment figuring out which GOP senators are willing to carry different issues. And some of them are, right? Some of them are very sympathetic to certain issues, or if you frame it in a certain way, understand like why this is important. But that being said, especially right now, especially being remote, I don't know a lot of the senators, and I don't know a lot of, especially the GOP senators. I know a lot of the PFL ones, but the GOP senators and who would be a good one. Or if you're not looking for a GOP senator, if you're looking for a DFL senator, we can try to hash that out. That's easy enough.
Okay, everyone, I promised to get her out in a half hour. We didn't do too bad. We didn't do too bad at all. Our meetings usually stretch on for a long time, Representative Hollins. But let's have one more round of applause and thank Representative Hollins for taking this on.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
we're behind you. Yeah, we're behind you, and you're leading us. So we're ready.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. I'm going to put my email in the chat real quick. And then if anybody has questions or wants to follow up with me, like absolutely, please do.
Can we take a group photo to post to the IWOC Facebook page? Would that be okay?
Yeah. Thank you for letting me know ahead of time, so I'm not
Yeah.
like mid sneeze or something.
I don't know if anyone, I don't want to turn my camera on. My picture looks much better than the real deal, but is everyone ready for this? I can just take a screenshot and send it. I can email it to you, Will, or
Sure.
I got to figure out who's our Facebook administrator or whatever, but.
Yep, we're ready. Go ahead.
Okay, on the count, and hey, Ed.
Smile,
On the
smile.
count of 1, 2, 3, and one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
All right, Jay, you got your hand. Jay's from Isaiah, so Jay.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say to everybody on this call that I can feel the energy. Isaiah is a very strong political force in Minnesota, and if some of you want to help change the Senate the next time around, give Wayne give Will your email address, and I'll get in contact with you. You can help, even if you can't vote. You can make a big difference just by getting on the phone and telling people to get out and vote for the right people. I should say the left people.
Right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jay.
Thank you for that. And I would strongly recommend it as well. And I'm trying to figure out a strategy right now to try to address the fact that we have a bunch of GOP senators that literally won't do anything. They're not even putting forth legislation that they like. They're just sitting there doing nothing, getting paid to block things that we're bringing forth. And these are things that are going to help all Minnesotans, not just Black and brown Minnesotans, not just Metro folks. This is good for everybody. So I think we really, Jay, maybe you and I can strategize on how we get that messaging across so that we let folks know you are paying somebody to sit there and just be a blocker. And that's all they do. Is that really who you want in the legislature? Is that really our goal here? Anyhow, I won't keep going.
I'll get to you.
Yeah, I think it'll be on her. It's on her website. Rep Hollins, right? Your email's on your.
Yeah, I accidentally sent it as a direct. That was my bad. There we go.
Okay. Everybody
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Rep Hollins.
All right, thanks so much.